Support the Amigos podcast on Patreon or PayPal and receive cool perks and rad swag. Visit our page at everythingamiga.com/support.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
Today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Dogs of War.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, this movie is obviously inspired by a certain kind of 80s action flick, I would say.
All right.
You got your Commando, you got your Cobra. What's your favorite one of those type of movies?
You know, those kind of war movies where guys blow up like 300 weird enemies. I've never gotten into them that much, to be completely honest with you. I like some of the parodies of them, like Hot Shots comes to mind, because that era was so stupid. You know, it's just a stupid era. I will say I do like Predator, which was like they took that genre and put it on its spin, you know, and added the alien. I thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, if you sat and watched like, you know, if you watch the first Rambo, it's almost a real film, sorta. You know, and then it just the rest of them just go crazy. But I don't know. It's watching one guy go through and slaughter a bunch of nameless, weird, countryless enemies. I don't know. It doesn't do much for me, you know. Unless he's creative, you know.
I will say that genre probably hasn't aged that well
No.
in this day and age. I do think about, you know, all of those faceless enemies. It's like, did they know what they were signing up for? This is like that conversation they have in one of those Kevin Smith movies about the troops on the Death Star. Did they know what they were signing up for when they signed their contract with the Empire?
Yeah, and when you see, like, I mean, all the time you'll see one of those guys get a rail gun or something and mow down like 70 guys. When you're the next crew to come out, I mean, what are you getting paid? You know?
You're not coming out. I'm out the door at that point.
You know,
when I see Rambo with a railgun, I'm gone.
I will say, this game, you're right. Talk about it's fully inspired by these cheesy movies. You had your Schwarzenegger, you had your Stallone, right? To a lesser extent, you had your Von Damme. Who was your guy? Or let's say you got your Seagal was sort of in there, but they were more martial arty than shooty. Who am I missing here? Your Clint Eastwood, but really he made movies that were a tier or two up from most of those.
You know, I've always liked Stallone. You know, there's just something about the way he looks. He looks so dumb, you know, like, but it's an endearing dumb.
Yeah,
he's got one of those dopey looking faces. It's amazing. All those guys, how cut, especially Stallone. I mean, they just got in such good shape for these movies. You look at their chiseled abs, and I mean, it sort of reminds me of myself in a way. You know, I think about all the work that I put in every day to maintain the physique that I possessed.
You know, but all those guys were on the gas boat. Every last one of them.
I'm shocked to hear that.
I know. In fact, they've admitted at time and time. I mean, if you go watch Rocky 3, okay, where you've got Mr. T and Stallone in the ring. And Stallone is ripped, chiseled, and jacked, greased up, oiled up, and just he's got everything, you know. And if you look at it, Stallone has all this meat on him. He's not a big guy, and naturally, a guy his size is not going to be. And Mr. T too. They're neither one of them are big. You're not going to be super large and muscular without getting on the juice, my friend. So hopefully, he won't live to regret that.
I'm sort of surprised. I know that what's his name did those Marine movies, the wrestler
John Cena.
Yeah, John Cena. I'm surprised that more of the 80s wrestler crowd didn't make the jump into cinema. You didn't really see that outside of No Holds Barred, did you?
Well, you've had 3 actually. I think there's been 3 different guys play Marines in that series, and they were all wrestlers. Maybe 4. I know John Cena.
But these are all modern day guys. I'm talking about like in the 80s when wrestling was really hot. I'm surprised that guys didn't really roll that over into a film career more often than they did.
Jesse the Body Ventura, who was in Predator and Running Man, he was in a couple of them. So
you got a point there.
I would say him. But really, like Roddy Piper was in They Live, and Roddy Piper was in Hell Comes to Frogtown.
What?
Yeah, you never heard of that one?
No.
He plays the last virile man on Earth. It's a future. Yeah, you need to watch Hell Comes to Frogtown. They definitely need to watch that one, Bo. It's right up your alley. But so
Sounds like it.
a few wrestlers made it. A lot of wrestlers, people don't remember. I know you're not a big Bond fan, but in Goldfinger, you had Professor Toru Tanaka who played Odd Job. And then you had another wrestler who played the bad guy in You Only Live Twice. He played the grunt. I think that was it was a Hawaiian fella. I can't remember the name off the top of his head. So some wrestlers made the leap. George Animal Steel was in Ed Wood. So some guys did it. But, yeah, you're right. They didn't try their hand at being the lead star, probably because they can't act. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if they're just sort of inability, because the big thing that I love about 80s wrestling is that none of the big guys ever talked. They always had the manager that did the talking.
Well, all the bad guys did. Yeah, wrestling is a different form of acting from actual acting. When you see actual wrestlers try to act, it's often porn level acting or lower, but sometimes it's high school production level. Really bad. Like, you're embarrassed when someone walks in the room bad. I've had a lot of quickly change the channel when my mom would walk in because it was so stupid that I didn't want her to think I was stupid by association.
You were just embarrassed to be seen with the level of acting, which it makes it all the more remarkable that what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has done. He's the highest paid actor in Hollywood, I think.
Well, I mean, listen, here's a guy who he's one of the all-time great wrestlers, and Stone Cold was another one. Stone Cold was in some movies, Those guys were a different sort of a cut above a lot of these other guys, But yeah, The Rock, he is the wrestling's #1 success story by a long shot. And if you've ever seen any of his movies, like The Rundown, I think was one that was very similar to like a game like this where you go out and try to, you're out there confronting these guys. He's pretty good. He can pull it off,
Mm-hmm.
But he's done some duds too. Doom comes to mind. It was such a really stupid film, but there you go.
Well, speaking of stupid films, Aaron, what's been going on the Amigos Retro Gaming YouTube channel this week?
What are you implying, Boat? What a segue, Boat. That's great. We've actually had a lot of sweet, luxurious action this week, Boat, if I may say. A ton of stuff. So let's start off. I'm trying to think. I think this got released just after we did Amigos last week, which was my stream in salute of the veterans, But it was a Veterans Day stream I did. I had a good turnout for this, and so I thought I'd stick it up here. But it was me playing a bunch of military-type games. Games with soldiers, games with tanks, games with airplanes and helicopters and stuff like that. We had a good time. Went a couple hours, played some wacky stuff, had a real good run here at the end. Actually, it was Rob Flacco Harris suggested, I believe it was we played this game.
I was going to say, what game is that right there? That looks pretty good.
This is a Game Boy Advance game. I think it's called Army Men.
Oh, there were a bunch of those.
Oh, yeah, there were. There were 18 chameleon. Now, I finished the first whole level of this. And you know me, and patience not my strong suit. And I did want to kill myself before it was over, but I was happy when it was done. So yeah, if you want to see a bunch of crazy Army games, you also get to hear me wax on about my grandfather, which I know you've heard those stories millions of times. But
heck of a guy.
By God, it was Veterans Day. I was going to get my stuff in, Boat. So there you go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Oh man, I guess we should talk about this. Since it's me and the Brent last week, we had our throwdown on the second
ARG battle episode of ARG Presents.
What's that?
The second battle episode of ARG Presents.
This is the second battle episode. It's funny. I went back and watched the first battle episode. And it was right when the pandemic hit, and I didn't have a good setup, and so it's not the easiest thing to watch. Plus, we're not good anyway. But at least this time the production levels were better, and we still weren't good. But this time out, it was Atari ST versus the Amiga 500. I gotta say, Boat, this was one of our most well-received episodes. In fact, it was one of the most popular ones we've ever released. Which I guess it's because a lot of people like Amigas and a lot of people like Atari ST. And I promise you, I'd planned on coming in here and stomping Brent into a fine powder. But a funny thing happened on my way to the stomping. Is I did some research. And when I did the research, I had to pull the boots back quickly because it turns out the Atari ST is not some big wad of garbage that you can stomp on. This thing was actually a pretty decent computer, and when you add in several factors, it made this a heck of a close call. In fact, we ran a poll after the show. We ran a poll amongst the people that were in the chat, and to see who won, and it was a tie. It was a straight up tie. And I agreed with it, and so did Brent. So this is one I think you might get a kick out of if you're into the Atari ST or the Amiga, and you want to see a couple guys talk about it without fanboying out the nines, which is what we didn't do. I wanted to fanboy out the nines, but again, I just couldn't do it because I was being realistic, Boat. You know how I am with that. So anyway, if you want to check that out, ARG Presents Atari ST versus Amiga 500. We'll be filming a new ARG on Sunday at 9 a.m. This time out, we spun Fight, which means we both are picking a fighting game, and we're going to go to war. And I guarantee you, because I know what Brent picked, there will be a stomping involved in this one, I assure you, although it might be...
Listen, I know what game Brent picked, and that stomping is undeserved, but I'll leave it at that for now.
I will say this, Bud, as a music man that you are, all right?
I am a music man.
That CD that came with the SNES version, that was top shelf. Man, I've heard that thing a million times. I'm not going to be bashing that. Let's talk about... I'm going to let you talk about this one, Boat. This got some interesting comments. It was your ZX Spectrum professional ski simulator, Boat.
You know, it's funny. We'll talk about this in a little bit. Oh, actually, no. I take it back. We'll talk about it now. This is professional ski simulator for the ZX Spectrum. This is another one of these unboxing and review episodes of our Sinclair Solo that I put together. This is a game that nobody should ever play. It is one of the worst games ever. And that's saying something, because the Spectrum, for all of the gold on the Spectrum, there's a whole lot of crap on the Spectrum too. And this is the lowest of the dirt worst. This comes to us from Codemasters. It's one of their early budget releases. And boy, this is a game where you take off down a ski slope against an AI opponent. And who does the camera choose to focus on? The player? The person with the joystick? Heck no. The camera focuses on your AI opponent. So as your AI opponent goes down the hill at Mach 3, the camera follows him down the hill, leaving you at the top of the hill to negotiate the moguls and the berms and all those words I don't completely understand by yourself. This is a horrible game, Aaron. It's a pretty looking game. You know, it's monocolor. It does
look good.
But it is the worst. It is the dirt worst.
One would wonder how that would leave the shop with the camera like that. I mean, who could play test something like that and be like, good enough?
Yeah, not I. I think it was a different world when it was released. I have a feeling it might have been a little rushed out the door. But anyway, if you want to watch me struggle with that, check that video out.
I've got to watch that one because I haven't seen it yet. Just for that little clip, that looks great. Now, here's an interesting one. You know, our good buddy Rob Flack O'Hara has started to do some some streaming. Although this is off Steam, but he started to do some streaming. And the other day I caught the tail end of one of his streams, and he was playing this crazy looking Paperboy knockoff. And by God, here it is. It's a Sprite Castle plays the Video Kid. Now, have you heard of this one, Boat?
It's funny. I never heard of this before, and I tuned into Flack's stream, and I was watching him play it, and I was like, "Holy cow! This is exactly the kind of game that I've always thought about making." I always thought that Paperboy would lend itself extremely well to an endless runner style game. I didn't think about the VHS delivery angle, I must admit, but this looks like a really, really fun game, and I think it's only $3 or $4, so I may pick this one up.
Listen, this is great. It looks great. I saw this. I was like, "Holy smokes!" I asked him. I was like, "What is that?" And he, I mean, it's funny. I did a thing where I reimagined some game. We played some reimagined games, and this right here is someone doing a reimagining of a classic game. Because listen, if you try to make Paperboy 2, or 3 or however, and you're at best you're gonna do okay. This is like
at worst you're going to end up with that N64 game.
Yeah, they take a Paperboy concept here, and then they go bananas, and that's what you do. Go bananas. So yeah, good for him, and good on Flack. He's been getting them in this week. So here's one, Boat. This is Ask the Amigos for November Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Us answering questions, having a good time. chilling and ill. And I do miss answering these together, Boat, because it's fun to look over at you and wonder what in God's name you're talking about, or to call you an idiot right to your face. But I miss all of our shows together. I'll be honest with you.
I know.
But that much said, man, I'm holding on. I'm hoping this vaccine we hit the pay window here in a couple months, Boat.
Me
It's
too.
going to be a loving embrace. Get the cameras ready. But until then, you can enjoy me and Boat answering questions, most of which we have no business being involved in, including questions about people's employment, people should go on vacation,
Job advice,
all
things
sorts
we were
of-
not qualified at all to give advice on.
I was listening to some of this earlier, and one of our buddies who had just lost his job, but we were giving this job advice, and I thought to myself, I've had so many jobs. I thought to myself, you're the worst person that could conceivably be giving job advice to any person. But by God, I'd do it anyway. Being right or wrong never stopped me from talking. That's for darn sure. And last on the docket, Boatster, another offering from our good buddy, the Flackster. And this is Sprite Castle plays Jeopardy. Jeopardy, Boat. It's funny how many hours I spent on classic machines playing Jeopardy, Boat. I don't know about you. When I was at the high school, we played it all the time.
I didn't spend as much time on Jeopardy as I did the Wheel. I feel like I played Wheel of Fortune on every conceivable console. And another game that doesn't get a lot of love these days that I played a lot was Classic Concentration. You know, the game where you uncover the matching symbols, and then the puzzle is like an anagram. So it's like a picture of a ring, ice or something. Yeah. I played that a ton on the PC, on the NES, on all kinds of things.
You know, the funny thing about that, Boatster, is that those old TV game shows were not that tough to pull off on the computer, and they came across pretty well. Even if you had a CGA Vanna White pixelating her butt across the screen, you know, or whatever, it worked, and it was a lot of fun. And man, we played a ton of these. Rob just mentioned Card Sharks. That's another one I used to play. But I played a ton of Wheel of Fortune. You were dead on there, man. That was one I used to play. So kudos, and it's neat to see somebody covering some Jeopardy. I've spent a lot of time, and it's funny, like you said, across all systems, consoles, computers. I've played them all. You know, another thing, Monopoly, something I've played on like 50 systems. So I don't know what. There you go. So there you go. Some good stuff this week up on the channel. If you head over to our YouTube channel, Amigos Retro Gaming, and please subscribe, hook up, give us the hookup. You know, we love it. Give us some thumbs up. Give us some love. We love that stuff, man. We'd appreciate you.
Comment, subscribe.
That's right. We never do that stuff. And every show I've ever listened to, they always pound that. They're like, ring the bell. And I'm always like, what bell? What's he talking about? The notification bell, it turns out. So there you go.
You can
Boat.
ring my bell.
Yeah. I could have went without that, Boat.
Aaron, I thought we'd talk a little bit about what Neil and I talked about on This Week in Retro this week. I have a feeling that you might have some thoughts on this. The first one.
Did that just come out today, Boat?
It just came out today.
Yeah, I didn't get to hear that. It was great. So I'm glad you guys are back.
We recorded yesterday. We took a week off last week. I hope that you didn't unsubscribe from our show because we took a week off. But I was down with disease, and we just didn't have it in us. And by we, I mean me.
You were down with this
week.
Sickness.
Yeah, that's right. I'm back and better than ever, which is really just slightly better than awful. But we talked about Fujinet for the Atari 8-bit, Aaron. Have you heard about Fujinet before?
No, I haven't heard about that.
Fujinet is the new hotness. You know, both you and I have these SD card solutions for our Atari 8-bits. Well, this thing is like that on steroids. So not only is this thing a SD card floppy emulator, this thing also gives you internet connectivity. It gives you networking capabilities. It's a printer interface. It lets you connect to BBSs. You can do everything with Fujinet.
You know,
so
I have heard of this. And you know where I heard about it? Not to plug. They've been talking about this over on Pixel Guide In. I believe they both have one of these things, and I believe Eric is in the wheelhouse of the beta testing on this thing. And believe it or not, they just talked about, I'm pretty sure this is the island they talked about, where they live right down the road from a place called the Brewing Academy, where they're cranking these things out. So,
that's right.
So there you go. So I guess I have heard about those. So go ahead. I know they're great.
This thing is on my list. The thing that, you know, obviously the SD card. It's actually a compact flash card. I have a My IDE card cartridge for my Atari 8-bit, and it leaves something to be desired in terms of compatibility. A lot of stuff works, but a lot of stuff doesn't. This thing is apparently compatible with every kind of file type that's possible. Plus, you can set it up to just transfer files wirelessly. You FTP into it just like you would a Pi, where you can transfer files to the SD card from your PC. And that's amazing to me that you can do that through the Atari 8-bit. But what I talked about mostly on This Week in Retro is a weather app for Fujinet, where you can make this thing run. It will pull weather data off the open weather database and display it 90s Weather Channel style on your screen. And that makes me happy, Aaron. You might think, why does that make you happy? Why do you care? Well, it's because when I sit down in my I call it my happy place here in the studio, where I'm surrounded by the Atari, the Amiga 1000, and my classic fantastic Mac, I don't have anything fun to just have on in the background with the Atari. You know, there's not really any cool demos that the Atari can run. It's not like the Amiga. I mean, there are some demos for the Atari, but I want something passive where I can just kind of look over and I see the system going. And this is the thing for me. Plus, who doesn't want to know what the weather is? It's a good thing to know.
I don't. Not in the winter, I don't. What difference does the weather make? It's not like we can go outside anymore. But yeah, I did hear about this, the weather at the whole 9 yards. It is. Now, here's the thing. Is this something I personally would need? Probably not. I just sit around playing games. But I will say the FTP aspect of it I do like. And from what I've heard, this thing is like the Swiss Army knife of Atari gimmicks. It's not. I've heard the price is even pretty reasonable in the boat. It's not real super expensive, is it?
It's $50 or $60. It's the same price as all of the SD card gimmicks out there. So they went out of their way to not rake anybody over the coals on this thing.
Yeah, that's a heck of a. I mean, in all honesty, even if you're not going to fiddle with it that much at that price, pick one up just to screw with, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's dandy. I'm definitely going to have to check out your show because I want to hear about that. Because like I said, the boys at Pixel Gating have been all over this thing.
Yeah. Now, there was one more thing that I wanted to tell you about, Aaron. The Warrior 64 console is coming out. Have you heard about the Warrior 64?
Is this like the Ultimate Warriors version of the 64?
It is. What they do is they apply some face paint very carefully to the outer shell of it. That's not what this is. What they've done is they've ripped original N64 boards out of their casings and stuffed them in a new, slightly less cool casing, and then added HDMI support. Does that excite you, Aaron?
So this is sort of like that the metal Dreamcast case that we talked about a while back.
Yes.
But no, it doesn't excite me, and I'll tell you why. I don't care. You know, here's the thing: the N64 hasn't aged well, Boat. In terms of its it's not its fault. I'm not saying it's crap. I'm just saying its graphics. It was right there. It's sort of like the PlayStation. It was in that transitional phase of 3D, and so it looks sort of clunky a lot of times. And the thought of hooking that up to your HDMI and having super sharp, pristine graphics, I don't see that's going to be a benefit to the old N64. And I'm guessing also this thing ain't cheap, knowing that the way these things go.
It's not cheap. And what if I told you that Metal Jesus said it was one of the biggest disappointments of his life firing this thing up?
One would wonder why old Metal Jesus would get so fired up about an N64 case in the first place. It's not going to make the games better.
He went on an epic rant against this thing. Apparently, the HDMI output is roughly identical to what you get with one of those $30 adapters that just plug into the composite. So
how much does this thing cost, Boatster? Did you guess?
This thing runs you about $150 all told, fully assembled. I think you can buy it in kit form, but $150 out the door. Which, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not a bad price for basically a real N64 board with a custom case and a controller, a redesigned controller. I don't think that's a bad price, but if you're promising the brightest HDMI output ever devised, and when you compare it against one of those $30 adapters and the $30 adapter is slightly better, you've made a bad move.
You know, we're going into a weird, let's take a little side track here for a minute, Bode. We're in a weird area now. You know, before the argument was between emulation and real hardware, right? Mm-hmm. And then the argument was between real hardware and FPGAs, right? And I guess emulation is still in the fight. And I can understand those, but now we're into the world where the argument is original case or weird new case. And this is
We've
this
crossed the
argument.
border.
I didn't see this one coming, but I guess people looked around and like, listen, they've changed. They've got FPGA. They've got emulation. What can we do to make a buck? And they're like, let's make a fancy new case. Like you love the NES, right? And the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
What if some sucker made a stainless steel, solid gold, mega case with your face and name sprawled over? Whatever would make you happy. I mean, is there a point where you decide, I want to get a new case for this thing? I mean, is it part of the nostalgia that you would feel for that sort of thing, the way it looks, or is it not the way it looks? I mean, if it doesn't matter, like, I don't know. It's weird what people are into. I cannot figure it out. It's strange to me.
Well,
Now,
I think
explain
you've
it.
got to separate these projects out a little bit. So on the one hand, you have something like the Checkmate case, which is a new case for your Amiga 500, but in addition to just being a new housing, it also gives you expansion capabilities the original 500 didn't give you. Okay,
Right.
So you got that on one end, and
Plus
on
a
the
new
other
form
end,
factor.
right. On the other end, you've got your metal Dreamcast, and I think that this is just it's set up for people that feel like they want to get that next hit of adrenaline from looking at something new. They've been looking at their plain old Dreamcast, and maybe the Dreamcast is starting to lose its luster a little bit, and they're like, man, if I could just get a metal one, that would reignite my passion for this machine. And that's a fool's errand. You can't recapture the nostalgia of the classic console of your youth by coating it with a shiny metal.
My theory on this is that this isn't aimed at people that have owned the Nintendo for 20 years at all. I think these case replacements and some other things, by the way, are aimed at people that got into the retro game. And this is not I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying. I think it's aimed at people that got into the retro gaming scene that don't have a ton of nostalgia for these machines because they're not that old. I think this is aimed at the same at people that want to just have something unique and different to sell on their shelf. That kind of crowd. It's hard for me. I've known plenty of people that were passionate about certain consoles or computers, which is fine. But I don't think I've known any of them that have waxed. I mean, I guess, they did make new cases for the Amiga. In fact, I've got one here, the black case. But I mean, it looked like the old case, which is a different color. Some of these things, they don't, I mean, the metal Dreamcast they present, it doesn't look like the old Dreamcast. It's a whole different setup. It's expensive. I mean, I wonder if this is just, I think it's just another angle to make some money. Now, if people want to buy this stuff, it's a good angle. It's a choice. It is odd to me that these things are coming out now, and I suspect we're going to see them for right across the board, Bode. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I guarantee you this will not be the last redesigned console case that we see. These are coming fast and furious.
I will say I don't have
rate,
a problem with it. Heck, everyone get whatever you want. The heck with it, man.
Yeah. At any rate, if you're interested in more of my thoughts, plus Neil from RMC waxing about this stuff, we also talk about the new Retro Cafe over in Burnley. Aaron, you know where Burnley is?
I don't.
It's up near Leeds.
Okay.
You know where Leeds is?
I don't know where that's at either. No.
And of course, we have to talk about the latest ZX Spectrum Next news. There's a new Spectrum Next clone board, Aaron. It sort of does for the ZX Spectrum Next what the Amiga does for the Amiga, if you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. That's interesting.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, let's move on to this week's Amiga news.
Amiga news.
Aaron, first up right out of the gate, we have a new video from the one and only Pixel Vixen, Aaron. This is why the Commodore Amiga 1200 is my all-time favorite computer. Now, Aaron, I enjoyed this video a lot, mostly because, Pixel Vixen, great lady, great girl. I think that she does great work, great artwork. I think that her pixel art is fantastic. But what I really enjoyed seeing was the scenic fall Japan scenery behind when she was talking. She did a couple walk-around segments, and I just loved seeing where she's living in Japan. It was really cool. And she's also interviewed several other people that are crazy about the 1200, talking about what makes it special to them. Now, Aaron, the 1200 is your personal favorite Amiga, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I would say it is. It's the most. I think it's the most functional. But of course I haven't really played with the big box Amigas that much, so I could be coaxed into like them. But yeah, I'd say it's my favorite. I will say I've seen a couple of Pixel Mixes videos from Japan, and that's my favorite part too. There was one where she walked to this park and it was beside a river, and it was just awesome. It's neat to see. I like seeing the scenery in Japan. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So check that out. Next out of the docket, I keep saying docket. You got me into the docket.
I know. I got you doing that. I love that.
Yeah. Software Amusements, Aaron, is a site where you can go. This is Mutation Software. They now have downloadable CD32 compatible disk images of all of their library. So these guys are the ones that are releasing the games like Wiz, a bunch of games that we've talked about in the past, Tommy Gun, 10 Toy Adventure. If you are into those and you want CD32 versions of them, you can actually get what's called the Mutation Gold compilation. This thing is $14.99. Not a bad price at all when you consider that it comes with all of their latest releases. It features Doodlebug, Cyberpunks, 10 Toy, Tommy Gun, and Castle Kingdoms for the CD32. This thing looks pretty good. It comes with a full color 12 centimeter inlay artwork cover, so you can burn a CD, you can make a jewel case with the artwork, you can go to town. I think $14.99 for this collection is a pretty good price, and CD32 owners, they're always looking for more love.
Listen, this is a smart move by these fellas. Get it up there, make it accessible. Keep the price in a decent spot. $15 for like 5 or 6 games when the games are going for $4 or $5 a spot. You're coming out ahead. We haven't played all these games. I played some, but hey, I like that. And plus selling the ISOs were good. It's great, smart move. If you've got a CD32, like I've said this before, this is the best time in the history of the world to have owned a CD32. The best, cheapest hardware and tons of software. They've got the ports of the Amiga stuff coming over in those collections where they've made it so that you can play them with the joystick, the controller that came with the CD32. This is it. This is the perfect time to have a CD32. And if that's your only Amiga, not only can you get by, you can actually have a darn good time. So any way it goes, you're covered. And it's funny, 10 years ago when these things were giving away CD32s, this would have been awesome. But now CD32s cost $18 kabillion, so your market's going to be limited on those. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like it, man.
And finally, Aaron, this week, our final Amiga video comes to us from Neil, a.k.a. RMC, The Cave. He is learning to love the Commodore Amiga 600 by way of an Amiga 600 that has made his way to the cave.
Yeah.
Neil has a sort of a love-hate relationship with this 600, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
He talks about how when it was first announced, how disappointed he was because it was essentially a non-upgrade over the Amiga 500 that he already owned, and how he felt like it was really the harbinger of doom. And of course, this was backed up by several quotes by the man himself, Mr. Pleasance, as he's known around these parts.
That's right.
So, but Neil, the thing that I love about watching Neil is, of course, you love to hear him speak. But I love when he starts his teardown and he replaces all of the capacitors. He talks about did you know there's a new kind of capacitor that is leak free, Aaron?
I had heard something about that, yeah.
Yeah. So he orders some capacitors. He really doesn't do much. I think the bulk of his repair work is going to come into the next video, but he goes over the various upgrades that he's going to put in. He talks about this power supply that he ordered. I've never seen anything like this before. This is a power supply that actually has a little mini LED in it that gives you a readout of the voltages.
Yeah, those power supplies are the new hotness. I've seen a lot of people get the power supplies I've got for the remember I had to replace one for the Atari computer and the Commodore 64. And mine look exactly the same, except in the little view window, it doesn't display the statistics. It just has the logos. But yeah, always a good idea to get new power supplies. I'm finding out. It's funny. I watched this video the other day when it popped, and I'm with Neil. The Amiga 6. I mean, it's not like we're the only ones, but the Amiga 600 when it came out was an absolute horror because you had been waiting patiently for the hot, cool new item, and then this was like he says, in some ways it was a step backward. I mean, they eliminate the edge connector. What the hell were they thinking? Well, what they were thinking was, we're idiots that can't run a computer company is what they were thinking. And yes, and Neil was right when he said to himself, this is not good, this could be their heinies. This was it. And it's funny now because me and you we've both used that Amiga 600 that we got with the PAL motherboard on it, and we both loved it, and we both loved it for the same reason. It's so small, and which also this was not this wasn't a good thing back then either, to be honest with you, because they getting rid of the it seemed cut rate, at the time.
Well, they removed some features, they added other features, but the real killer was that the price. If they could have put this thing at £200, they would have had a winner. But what they did was they priced it as much or more than an Amiga 500. The cartoon pack, which came with tons of software, had more functionality with the exception of the useless PCMCI port and, of course, the IDE hard drive, which you could add to a 500 with one of those sidecar things.
Well, we've talked about that PCMCIA slot before.
Useless garbage.
Well, I mean, you're a young man, Bode. PCMCIA cards were very prominent on laptops back in that era. Okay, and so when they believe it or not, when they put that in, I was impressed because it's something that PCs had, and so you're like, okay, maybe we got something cooking here, and it was a hot swappable, item. Now nothing really came of it, frankly. I mean, you could they use it now. Like Neil's going to use it to transfer stuff. That's what I've done. But I mean, that wasn't like a dud. It wasn't like they screwed you. Was that better than the Edge connector? No. But it seemed like it might be better at the time. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the IDE is the big deal that got put in there. That was a big deal. But you're putting an IDE connector. I never understood why they put an IDE connector in a budget. What was supposed to be a budget computer. I guess they had to do it because they got rid of that Edge connector. But I mean, I have a feeling that the PCMCIA slot and the IDE card or the IDE connector are probably what pushed that thing over the price threshold that they were looking for in the first place.
Oh, undoubtedly it was. Yeah. It definitely wasn't that the chipset. So.
Then you had incompatibilities that crept in. A lot of that was from, granted, a lot of it was from the Kickstarter that it came with, but you also had some software. Neil mentions this too that required the numpad, and not being there was an issue, But I mean, this is just a dud. But it's great, much like the CD32 we were just talking about it. It's great to see that this machine has got a new a life breathed into it in the past 10 years, and have become hot properties. And that's because of really good accelerators, plus the Vampire has had a lot to do with it. And the fact that it had an IDE built in, that gives you the ability to run those WHD loads. So we're in a whole new era of these things now. But at the time, Neil's right. I was right. When he was talking about this, I felt the exact same way. When I heard the specs, I thought this is an absolute disaster. And it was.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week's news. Of course, we will waiting with bated breath for Neil to release part 2 of his A600 series, but we move on to this week's Amiga game of the week, Dogs of War.
Dogs of War, Boat. I like it when me and you have sort of played this, played something in the past, and this is what we actually had played. So I wasn't completely out of the loop when this thing popped up. I looked it up, Bo, just for fun. We played this on the Amigathon 2018 in the 19th hour.
That was a dark hour, Aaron. It was a very dark hour.
I believe this is the last hour we have footage of from that. Was this hour?
It was too much for the network. Dogs of War brought it down.
Yeah, it got much darker. Dogs of War is sort of one of the things I remember. I was like right before it slid down the hill. And it wasn't Dogs of War's fault, but it didn't help. So. Dogs of War released in '89, and on a disc, it had 1 to 2 players. Developed by an outfit called Vectordine. This was a port from the Atari ST over to the Amigas, the 2 platforms it was released on. This was converted over by a fellow named Steve Bach. He's actually done some stuff we liked, some stuff we didn't like. He did Aquatic Games. Remember that one?
Yeah, good game.
He did Bad Company, Battleships. He did Fright Night, which is a good
Wow.
stands. I liked Fright Night, sorta. It was goofy. Gold Runner. He did James Pond 2. So
Okay.
he's done some pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
It was one of the coders was Tim Coop. He did Fire, Brimstone, and Bart vs. Space Mutants. Graphics were done by a fella named Chris Sorrell, who also worked on Bad Company, Fire and Brimstone. He worked on all the James Ponds, and he worked on that Splitting Image game that we played. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
That was horrible. And the music, good old reliable. He's always around. Call him up, David Whitaker, who has done, God, about a million things. The ones that come to my mind immediately are Alfred Chicken, the Xenons, the original Shadow of the Beast, Golden Axe, Lemmings 2, and he also worked on Fright Night, the Fright Night Connection intact boat. This was released for the OCS, and is a, I guess you would call this this is sort of a throwback game, isn't it, Boat?
Well, yeah, it's a 89, I don't know if it's old enough or new enough in 89 to really be called a throwback. These types of games were still being released by the dozen in the arcades.
Well, yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, it was. I guess maybe that it was. To me, it seems old school, but you're right. It is old enough to be where old school was current school. So, what is Dogs of War? Dogs of War is a game where you run around and kill wave after wave of bad guys with your various guns. That's the jut of the game. That's basically the long and short of the game.
Yeah.
But there is enough. There's some different slants than you would normally see that make the game sort of unique, I guess. Amongst those are your ability to purchase weapons. Now, I remember when we played this the first time, we were baffled at this screen. And I remember part of the problem was that we couldn't identify which bullets with the what gun, which that was because we're idiots.
Yeah, that was just because we're dumb.
Yeah.
But if you consult the manual for extra help in purchasing your loadout, you will receive no assistance. One of the things that really would have made this game cool and could have made it more educational is they took the trouble to build in all of these realistic weapons. I assume they're realistic. I'm no firearms expert.
Yeah,
it would have been great if this game, just like so many games came with little novellas or whatever, if this game would have come with like a magazine that would have told you about the history of these guns, what they're used for, and it could have helped you, in each level, especially if they would have put like, hey, there's going to be, tanks in this level or something like that. Then you can look up in the magazine, well, what do I need to beat back these tanks? That would have been cool.
Yeah. You know what I can envision here, Boat? You ever seen those, like, they're like guns and ammo type magazines, but they're like Soldier of Fortune, I think's one.
Right.
That would have been a great, by the way, I'm assuming you saw the manual to this. The manual to this, at least the one I saw in Hall of Light, was like, it was like 3 paragraphs long.
Yeah,
it was
and
so
most of it is how to load the game.
Yeah.
It really leaves a lot to it's a shame because this game could have benefited from a lot more material.
Yeah, I like the idea though. I think that would be cool. A Soldier of Fortune style magazine. They could go over all the guns in like a review format and even talk about some of the conflicts. See, we can rewrite
this
is
thing.
Obviously,
Dogs of War. It's a game from Elite. It's not. This is not going to be one of the all-time greatest games of all time, but. I think about a game like the Leisure Suit Larry game. I think it's 3, where he's on the island, and they turn the manual into a travel brochure for the island.
Yeah.
Your Soldier of Fortune magazine idea, where they actually list, like they give bios of all the guys that you have to rescue or whatever. Yeah. There's endless possibilities there. What a missed opportunity.
They
that
can
would
even
have been
talk
so cool.
about your characters and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's precious little to know about them. So. Once you pick and you spend, you get quite a bit of money to pick guns, and you'll get to buy more stuff after you complete a level. Then it's time to choose your theater of war, right? And this thing gives you tons of options, man. You're going everywhere from Canada to Mexico, South America, Australia. There's several things in Europe and Asia. You get tons of choices, and each choice is a little story. Like you're rescuing a hostage, or you're looking for a piece of hardware, something like that, or there's a soldier you need to capture, or a former Nazi agent. There's a ton of different ones that you can go through. Now, ultimately, these aren't. The funny thing about this game is a lot of what you do at the beginning of it is sort of like window dressing. for the actual game itself. Because when the actual game starts, it's not unlike every other game of this type you've ever seen. You're a guy with your various guns, and you go through wave after wave of bad guys who just aimlessly wander around, and you try to get to the end of the level. And most of the levels, when you get to the end, there's not even really a big throwdown. There's a couple levels they'll have maybe a larger gun or a flamethrower, or maybe a couple trucks or something. But I mean, it's not like you're fighting like mechs or unbeatable mega soldiers. It just mostly...
there really aren't bosses in this game.
There are.
You just, when you get to the end of the level, there's usually a dude. He's just hanging out. He's motionless.
Yeah.
And you go and you touch him, and that's the end of the level.
Sometimes it's a chick. Sometimes they're tied to a pole. Sometimes one level there's it looks like a warhead stuck in the ground. I mean, so that part of the game, I mean, you're right. This is sort of like a budgety game. And you would think, what stuns me is they went to all the work to put all those weapons in. And they went to all the work to put all the different levels of where you can go in. You would think that they would have tried to at least differentiate the endings, because to make it a little more interesting. But they really
here's my personal theory on this, Aaron.
Yeah.
My personal theory is they didn't expect anybody to actually make it to the end of these levels. This is one tough mamma jamma. You start out with 3 lives, and this is a one-hit kill game.
Yeah.
And the action is fast and the action is furious. The enemies in this game, some of the dumbest enemies I've ever seen in my life. These guys amble about like guys like zombies, basically. They fire indiscriminately. They're not necessarily after you. They're just excited to be there and fire their weapon. Sometimes they just move from one side of the screen to the other, and they pass on to parts unknown.
Yeah.
So the problem is that this game involves very little tactical strategy other than just avoiding the maze of bullets that you encounter in every level.
Yeah.
This game does scroll in multiple directions. Most of the levels tend to follow an S-type pattern.
Yeah.
Where you start out moving vertically, the action shifts left, and you move to the left for a while, then you shift back up, shift to the right, and then you complete the level. That's the way that I noticed most of these going on. The action, or the stages themselves, the graphics are pretty good. Whenever you move to the various levels, you see ground that I wouldn't call it necessarily specific to the region, but every level I think looks sufficiently different from every other level, at least at the beginning. I'm sure they reuse some tiles. What I enjoyed was that you're moving through different sorts of environments. This isn't all jungle. One of the worst things about most of these games is that every level is a jungle level, because it's supposed to evoke that sort of quasi Vietnam era movie like Rambo or something like that. In this game, you're moving through city environments. You see city streets, you see parked cars, you see storefronts, all that stuff. I thought added a lot to the atmosphere of the game. However, what I would have liked to have seen is a lot less enemies and a lot more tactical using the environment around you to perform, to make it through each level. If they would have had, enemies taking cover behind various things where you are actually motivated to use all the different weapons that are at your disposal, that really would have added to the experience and made this a really good game.
Part of me wanted to like this game, and the reason is because the game, it has a lot going for it. I do like the idea of being able to pick multiple areas. I like the gun situation. I'm like you. I don't know what they are, but it's still cool. And I wanted it to be better than it was. The multiple areas, they're really only 5 or so different types of terrain: desert and jungle and forest. And it's not that. And they use the same crap over and over, and a lot of places that didn't make sense. Like, for whatever reason, you're down in Australia, there's a bunch of coolies down there. I don't understand that. And but it is sort of varied to a certain degree. It's not like it's all 100% the same, but it's close. The weapons, I wanted the weapons boat to be tailored to the individual levels, but as far as I could tell, it's not like in one level, like you said earlier, like here come the tanks. Pretty much the same crap is around most of the time, and so that takes an element of that would be interesting out of it, or even having a team up where you've got one guy with the heavy lumber and you got one guy with the quicker firing stuff. I mean, that's going to work on every level. It's not really worth tailoring your play style to certain levels because there's really not that much of a difference in the levels.
Yeah, and that leads me to my single biggest problem with this game is that every single time that you start over, you have to reload your weapon loadout. The first time that you go through and you pick your weapons, it feels pretty cool. You're like, "Oh man, I'm going through the armory, I'm picking out my ammo, I'm picking out my guns." But when you die the fifth or sixth time and you're just trying to make it through the level, the last thing you want to do is spend, 1 to 3 minutes going through your loadout. What they should have done was just have an option that says continue with the same weapons as before, yes or no, and then you get back into it. What I did was actually created a save state at the beginning of every level, and whenever I die, I just reload that save state. I wouldn't scum save states, but I would just reload. That way I wouldn't have to go through picking the weapons. That was such a drag.
I played this on the Amiga, so I couldn't use save states, but that's exactly what you should do. Smart man, Boat, because that is a drag. Listen, giving you 3 men on this. This is this game was this close to being a good game.
Yeah,
why not have
I
a
agree.
life bar of some sort? I know it's old school, but I mean, why not have it's too crazy not to have a life bar and only give you 3 men. I'm sure there are great people. We're watching the World of Long Plays guy go through this, and he's killing it. Okay, but guess what? Whoever played this is all man because your good buddy Aaron can't do this well. Now it's funny though, as you play this game, you sort of get used to the cadence of the soldiers, and you can get better at it. I mean, I got better by playing it, but I mean, still, it's just so much crap going on. And one of the things that really bothered me was that the projectiles would often get lost in the background. That happened to me tons of times. And you would get killed, and you'd be like, what the heck was that? Well, it's because the little white bullets were coming over the white cobblestones or whatever. You couldn't see them. You know what I mean? So that was a hang-up I had. The graphics on this, I would not call them great. I would call them passable. But, I mean, this is the Amiga, man. This is just a few steps above what you would see on the Spectrum in terms of the actual quality of the drawings. I expect a little bit better, frankly, than this. I think they could have done better. And but I mean, does that break the game? No. I mean, you can get by with the graphics that they've got, but I mean, you could do better. You could do a lot better with the tools at hand.
What they've tried to do with this game is they've tried to turn an arcade style shooter into more of a strategic simulation title by giving you, a very, very small amount of lives, by giving you no on-field power-ups. One of the things that I noticed, I went back and I played Ikari Warriors on the Amiga just to get another example of this sort of game. And you don't realize how much it adds to the game to just have power-ups on the field that you can pick up, how much it adds to the variety. In this game, you have nothing to do but kill other dudes and blow stuff up.
Yeah.
There is nothing else to do in this game. And this game really could have benefited from having health pickups on the field,
yes,
from having different things that
having hookups wouldn't help given you have no health.
Right,
So, yeah.
but having something to pick up, I realized that they wanted to make it ultra realistic by not putting, ammo pickups on the field or whatever.
Yeah.
But man, it just the tedium of this game just gets super, super old because there's literally just nothing else to do.
If this game was trying to be ultra realistic in any way, I mean, for God's sakes, you've got 3 tons of ammo strapped to your back.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. But and then also you're fighting 400 kabillion idiots that come strolling out. But I mean, the sad thing about this thing, Boat, is I actually sort of like this game, even in its deplorable state. I still play this thing quite a bit. Part of it was because it was almost hypnotic to get into the way the troops move, so you can sort of kind of scope how they're going to come. There is a weird, like I said, I can't explain what you pick up on, but I could get farther than you would expect someone like me to get in this game.
Now,
I couldn't complete a level. But
did you use the invincibility cheat at all in this game?
No, I didn't know about it, but I didn't use it.
I did use it, and I enjoyed this game a lot with the invincibility cheat turned on. There's something very cathartic. It's very similar to a game like Walker, where just mowing dudes down with no trouble. And I did enjoy seeing how the levels were laid out, because that does give you sort of an eye inside inside the mind of these developers what they were going for. I just think that they overdid it on the difficulty. Or you can make some obviously you get different amounts of money for different missions in this game.
Yeah.
It would have been great if they would have toned down the difficulty just a little bit for those lower priced missions, just to give the player some sense of accomplishment that they can at least complete one level without too much trouble.
I'm just going to get a little checklist in my head, okay? Here's what I want to see this added this game when somebody remakes it. Number 1, a health bar. Okay, we can both agree on that. Number 2, more diverse missions. All right, I mean, I really think these aren't that diverse at all. Number 3, why can't I get in a Jeep?
Yeah,
why can't I get
huge
in a tank?
oversight.
I want some vehicles up in this sucker.
It's another Atari Warriors thing. Get in the tank,
because
roll
that's
around.
cool. I mean, am I wrong? There are vehicles in this.
Wrong.
Why can't I drive these things?
That. Yeah, they put them in the game already.
Number 4, flesh out your manual, and then you went to all the trouble to make this game, flesh it out a little bit. Number 5, make the ammo, like you said, some kind of standard loadout would be cool. In this. Now, it does have multiplayer. I believe me and you actually tried multiplayer back when we played this. I know I've played this with the boy over the week. He didn't like it that much. We gave it a whirl. But that it's cool. You could actually, that helps if you have someone there to someone has the big weapons and someone has the small weapons. We should say that here we are. It's a game where you need 2 buttons and you've got 1 button. What do you do? Well, and this is in the manual. And I will say I thought it was kind of funny. If you're playing in 1 player, any key on the left-hand side of the keyboard will switch your weapons.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm assuming I didn't play this with the gamepad. I used just my Wicco. I'm assuming that they add second button support in the WHD load.
They did not. They did not add
really.
second button support. So I use the way that they did it is great. If you have to shoehorn in the keyboard, make it this way where literally any key on the left side of the keyboard, because when you're hot and heavy in the action, just being able to reach down and just mash a key, that's the way you want to switch. I
will say though, this game screens for 2 button support, because when you have to take your hand off the stick even for a second, you could be getting screwed. Now, there are some areas you could go to where the action slows way down if you scoot. And this is another thing you have to learn about this game. You can't just walk through the game like you're King Dong. You've got to scoot through this game like you're King Puss, because if you start going full bore, you're hosed. Also, they've got some hidden stuff in the game, like some hidden weapons that come after you, like flamethrowers that come out of the ground. And if you've got to grenade these things, you can't shoot them. So you better bring some heavy-duty booty, some good ammo with you, or you're not going to get very far either, because these things can shoot flames right across the screen. So there's some stuff like that. I mean, I'm assuming this thing, I don't have an opening price. I didn't get a price. I'm assuming this is a budget release when it came out. I can't imagine that this was a full-price game. Sort of like it's funny, the docks almost looked like they came in a tape. When I saw that, did you notice that? I mean, it looks like
I did notice that.
It looked like they photocopied like the insert from a cassette.
Right.
And I didn't see any of these on eBay, or any that had sold on eBay for this or the Atari ST.
Really?
Yeah. So I found boxes, but I didn't actually see the actual thing for sale or get any pricing on it. So who knows, man? I should mention, speaking of the Atari ST here, but I'm gonna pull this thing up. As I mentioned, this came out on the Atari ST. And was, as far as I can tell, was ported over to the Amiga. I mean, it had to have been, because it says in the opening of this game that it was ported over. The games it's almost perfect. They're almost identical. The one element you can see that's different is the scrolling on the Amiga version versus the Atari ST version. It's funny, coming off the ARG we just did, I could pick up on this stuff a lot easier than I would have before. The Amiga has a nice scroll, whereas the Atari scroll is a little jittery. This is
very very similar to so many of these. Like the Addams Family is the exact same way if you look at the ST version.
And so when you know what to look for, I know this for a lot of you guys, you've probably known for decades, but for me and Bo, we have never fooled with an ST that much. But otherwise, graphically, this thing is pretty much a dead ringer. I mean, almost in every way to the ST, as you can tell if you're watching the video. So I don't think you're going to do better or worse by going from one to the other. I think you're pretty much going to be getting about the same experience. I looked this thing up on the ratings here. I went over to Lemon to check out how we did on this thing, and amazingly, the ratings were all over the board here, Boatster. So Lemon gives us a 7.04. So again, it's funny. I think last week's game was a 7 on the dot. So they gave this a very similar score. Amiga Action gave this thing 58%. They dropped the hammer. Amiga Joker.
Well, I think Amiga Action is the one that gives. It's only out of 60, isn't it? One of those Amiga. We really need to establish which one.
Yeah, but it's not Amiga Action.
Okay.
Amiga Joker, they don't take any crap. They gave us a 59, and Amiga Power in their July 92, since they was several years old. You know what they punish old games. 27%.
Oh my gosh, that's harsh.
Yeah,
that's
CU Amiga gave it a 66, and the Games Machine gave it an 83, and I guess this is a German magazine, a Dator Magazin, in their number 16 1989 issue gave this 7 out of 10. That's probably the high water mark for this game. So it was not widely praised. But I mean, all things considered, I mean, I think we've played a lot of games, Boatster, over the years, and this was not. I didn't find this game offensive or like garbagey. I thought it was okay.
One thing that I do want to mention is that for a game like this, the music did not make me want to turn the music off.
Yeah, it was good. It was
it was a good pumping tune. It had enough variety.
Man.
Yeah, the length was fine, so it didn't get too repetitive. So that is worth mentioning, because with a lot of games like this, it gets real old real quick.
Yeah, the music. I mean, they brought in Whitaker. He knows his stuff. And which is, I wonder if I looked over all of his titles, and he worked on a lot of good stuff, and he worked on a lot of duds. So I guess at the time, they were you worked on everything. It's not like they brought, because I mean, think about it. This is the guy that worked on like Shadow of the Beast, for God's sakes.
Right.
I mean, top tier. He went all over the map. That's for sure.
That's another thing that makes me question if this was a budget title or not too, because I don't know that they'd waste David Whitaker on a budget title.
Well, that's what I was saying. Trust me, he was wasted plenty.
Okay.
Yeah, looking over his stuff.
Or maybe not. I mean, he was collecting a paycheck no matter what. So
I mean, think about it. He did Fright Night.
No, that's true. That's true.
It's not like he was reserved for only great stuff. He did a lot of crap too.
Quick bit of real-time follow-up from the chat. Barkbit informs us that Dater magazine is Swedish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Barkbit. There you go. This is what happens when you get the international gang in your chat room.
That's right.
These
now,
answers.
we did get some international reviews from our Discord channel,
Beautiful.
Aaron.
What do you got?
Lord Soup, he says, "Oh yeah, this is my turf. This is a classic example for me of a flawed, unexceptional game that one can enjoy despite its problems, and I love this game. I won't reveal the exploits, but it's basically Commando/Ikari Warriors with an outfitting screen between missions. Load yourself up with ARs, SMGs, LMGs, even handguns. If you want, you can even grab old Painless herself. Maybe I shouldn't, but I love this game. I doubt many would rate it too well, but for me, 9 out of 10. Did I mention the minigun?" Neg Soul writes, 1989 game with a touchy topic. Here in Germany, this game was indexed. And remember, Aaron, that this was part of that list that we've talked about a couple times.
Yeah, and this did mention Nazis in it. I'd wager that's a good reason why.
And so I never saw it in the stores back then. I gave it a try and must say it reminds me of one of the C64 games Commando and Who Dares Wins 2, and Amiga games Warzone, Fernandez Must Die, and Special Forces. Dogs of War has fast action, great weapon detail, and very nice music. I personally didn't like the weapon buy aspects without being able to save setups. All in all, a bit too fast for me. Instant death mostly by enemies spawning too fast. All in all, I give it a 6 out of 10. I personally prefer a round of Special Forces on my Amiga. And finally, living legend Graham Webkey writes, "If you know me, you know I love top-down gaming on 8 and 16-bit systems. If we crossed Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and Ikari Warriors, this is the gist of this run-and-gun game, which I first played on an Atari ST a long time ago. I believe this Amiga version of the game is essentially a good port of that ST game. You do have a decent selection of weapons to use, and some of the missions are more fun than others. Its graphics are okay for the game, but you would expect better on the Amiga. Sounds and music suit the game, but are not showstoppers. This game is better in two-player mode than single-player mode. I feel many of the missions make more sense in co-op, and the environments used lend to this. Overall, it's 6 out of 10 in single-player mode and 8 out of 10 in co-op." That wraps up this week's reviews from our Everything Amiga, or our Amigos Retro Gaming Discord channel, Aaron.
You know what? You remember a game called New York Warriors?
Yes.
This I think this is kind of on the same. I think I like New York Warriors a little bit more But
It's got a little bit more visual variety.
It's
to it, that's for
wacky
sure.
too.
Yeah.
But this reminds me of that quite a bit. And something else that occurred to me as I was loading up my guy. And maybe someone can address this to me, but why would you ever take like the handgun, for example, or why would you take the crappier guns? I mean, I guess the ammo loadout, but I mean,
there are lots of things about the weapons. Like, for example, they give you reliability ratings on the weapons, but I never had a weapon freeze up on me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was wondering about that too. I'm glad you mentioned that because I saw that too. And I was like, I don't know what some of that stuff means. Maybe if you're a gun and aficionado, which me and you are absolutely not that.
No.
We're the only ones in the state, by the way. But maybe this stuff is exciting or means something to you. But I mean, in all honesty, they could have almost just not put that screen in, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings. I mean, I know it adds an element of I almost would rather just pick the guns up like you traditionally do as pickups.
Yeah.
Because that way, when you get a wacky gun, you're like, "What's this do? Oh, look at that! What's that one do? Whoa,
Again,
look at that!"
it adds variety to the game. I can understand both ways. Why they did it the way they did it, but I definitely prefer a ground pickup scene for sure. Pixels at Dawn informs us that this was almost full price on release, $19.99 over in the UK.
Holy moly! That's asking a lot, Boatster.
It's asking a lot.
What do you think? Would you pay full price for this
Not on your life. Not on your life. This would probably be a budget release pickup for me. You know what you're getting into. It's a fun and gun, but I would be disappointed if I paid full price for this upon release.
These are those kind of games where like I could see this like after school, you and your buddy come over to the house and you just blow through this thing for a couple hours. And it's a good time. I can see, especially if you're younger. But now that I've got a more educated
refined palate.
That's right, Bode. I find it a little wanting.
I'll tell you what's not wanting, Aaron, are people that are awesome. And people that are awesome are people like Ray, the video guy, because he's left us a review on the Apple Podcasts app. We're trolling for reviews on the Apple Podcast app all the time. Anybody that has not done this yet, please do so. This, guys, I can't tell you how important this is to helping spread the word, even if you're not an Apple Podcast user. So many different services use this as their point of reference when they recommend podcasts to other people. If you could leave us a review like Ray the video guy did, he says, and get this, Aaron, there's never been more truth spoken in a review. Of all the Amiga podcasts, this is one of them. As an Amiga user in the US, from the moment the A500 came out, I love this podcast. They really help bring out the nostalgia for the best computer ever made. The podcast really is the top banana, and good enough that I will tolerate all the Coco and Sinclair nonsense. Thank you, Ray the video guy. We salute you.
That was a backhanded compliment. Clearly, Ray's been listening for a while.
Yeah.
If you said we were the top bananas, that. Thank you, Ray.
We want to thank Hasifa for suggesting Dogs of War to the Amigos Game Selection Committee over on Discord.
Yeah.
And if you would like to become a member of the Amigos Game Selection Committee, head on over to patreon.com/Amigos Podcast, where you can get all kinds of cool perks, including membership on our Discord server, getting ready to send out the yearly magnets to our supporters. Always a good time. And, you can help us pick the games. Help us pick the games that we play every single week on the Amigos Podcast.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, we need to thank some other fine folks, not only Ray the video guy, but all the fine folks that support us on Twitch. A Twitch subscription gets you those same sweet, sweet benefits that a Patreon subscription does. You can join the fun, just like Gelmet72 has, Jigglebox, Still Adolescing, Old B Sturgeon, Litwarski, Uber Scuba Diver, Great Owl G, Hermsky, Coconut 81, Retro Jerry, Roshi MSX, Wishbone, Pints and Amiga, Spy Hunter 2016, Memories of a Spectrum Gamer, Gary Heather, Macintosh Librarian, Frodo NL, Mitsuyama, Christian Russell, Wing Chun Wolf, Buck Owens, Roscoe 500, and RMC Retro. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to us on Twitch. You're helping support the show in ways that you can never imagine. Or maybe you actually probably can't imagine them if you really hard. So, Aaron, last week we had some new action on our Discord high score competitions.
New action.
That's right. Some new action. It's not that old action. We're tired of the old action. We want the new action all the time. We have, of course, we still continue on with the Seymour and the Nasty Duncans. I don't know what
I've
this
got
game
to
is
try
actually
this
called.
game. It's
This is Smarty and the Nasty Gluttons. There we go.
Yes,
That's the name of that's the name of this game. We have some new high scores. People are coming out of the woodwork to take part in this challenge. Sundown still reigns supreme. Z9K9 not far behind with Barkbit in third. And of course, in the Specky high score challenge, we have a new high score challenge this week, Aaron. They've wrapped around all of the games that we played on our Sinclair, and they've started again. We are playing Hyper Sports this week, Aaron. You and I both need to jump in here because we both love some Hyper Sports.
I do like Hyper Sports. I've seen some incredible scores whizzing by. I know.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is going to beat Z9K9. He has a score of 272,858. That's an unbelievable score for Hyper Sports. I am not going to do that well, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
I didn't really pay attention to the scores that much until recently, and when I looked at those scores, then I thought to myself, "My God!" Because I watched. I don't know how they do it. You have to really go in there and milk the points, Boat.
Yeah. And speaking of milking the points, last week's Patreon song, Aaron, I'll tell you who milked the points.
Nobody.
Duncan Styles did.
Someone
Duncan
got that?
Styles, our only winning entry. He got it correct. I skewed seasonal, and I went with Gone Till November. Do you know this song, Aaron?
I think you skewed Suckery, is what I thought. That was that rendition. I couldn't have identified that on a bet. I've never heard that one, Boat.
Okay, well, this was a song. It was popular when I was in college. It was when you were in your early 40s. Probably not
college music.
Too top on the top 40 at that time. But
Who
but
sang
anyway,
that one, Boat?
that was Wyclef Jean.
Oh my God! Listen, how about something someone's heard of? Get that guy out of here.
Nobody's heard of that guy. It was only the top. It was only a number 3 hit in the UK. Have you heard of the Fugees, Aaron?
No.
Okay. Well, he was part of the Fugees.
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a fan of the Fugees. Okay. Well, maybe you'll be a fan of this week's Patreon song. If you know this week's Patreon song, this is a full band ordeal. And we invite you to come along on the journey with us right now. Send me a message at johnamingospodcast.com if you know this song.
Heavy systems ain't funky frag, Lord, my violent. Full of hope, Jonah, aka Simulant Hunsky. Ethan Little, Jeremy Jones, Dave Palazzo Raptor, Alien Breeder, Data Dog, Lane Danson, Luke Hudson, John Kirk, From the Base, Roushi, Frodo, N.L., Solon, Sizer, Tate McGurkin, Mr. Cola, Daniel Williams, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Demington, Sword Glove, Commodore Kid, Killer Bikes and Caffeine, Reflection, Simon Ledge, Captain Crispy, Gary Heather, Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobster, Mineta, Bernard Quinn, 10-minute Amigo, Retrocast, Carletto, Rob O'Hara, RMC, Tim Drew, Simon Rose, Andy Craig, Joseph Harrison, Matthew Larimore, Sean Bobby, Roland Burke, Andrew Monks, Joe the Zombie, Chakotay Levelor. Biggie CDC, Stefan Sold Mortensen, the Slow Norris at Van Halen, Christopher Hassel, Rabbi Abbott, Blando 75 Dreamcatcher, Leland Giroux, Chris Foltz, BMW, Fairkey, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Adam Batters, PK Hooker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, tapes from the crypts, Dick Styles, Josh Knack, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, Kim, Tommy, Humberstad, Daniel Bankston, Darren Coles, THT, Brutal Barracuda, Jason Wands, Picks the Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Bob.
Oh yeah, man. That was golden. That was golden, Bode.
Yeah. That was big ups to the Patreon band for that one. That one is by far the most complicated song that we've attempted so far.
I think I knew that one, but I had to ponder it, Bode. That was good. That was good. You guys, that was some actual tight musicianship there. I don't know how you line that crap up over the especially with our internet. I don't know how you do it.
Well, it's a process, and I do want to thank again the full Patreon band there. That is Boss Man on drums, Reflection on guitar, Pixels at Dawn on vocals, and for the first time, hopefully not the last time, the one and only Figgy CTZ. And if you were watching that on the video stream, make sure you check out the re-uploaded version I'm going to put on YouTube. I have some video footage of Figgy playing the piano solo. Somehow there were some screwy things that happened as I was uploaded. The first time I uploaded the video, it had no audio. Aaron sent me a message. He's like, I can't hear anything.
Yeah,
so,
no one's going to identify the song off this boat, I said.
That was an extra level of difficulty. You just have to read Pix's lips and somehow know what he's singing. So at any rate, we do thank all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for continuously supporting the show year after year after year. In a lot of cases, it is much appreciated, and we do thank you all. You know who else we should thank is the fine folks who have joined us live through the good times, through the bad times. At the beginning of the stream when things were a little shaky, but I guess things so that the clouds have parted, the sunlight is shining through the hills of West Virginia, and we have a clear We have a clear signal. That's right. The first person we should thank is our tireless moderator, Pixels at Dawn Gaming, doing the Lord's work, banning the suckers as he does often. We got Tinmark here in the chat with us this week. Hello, Tinmark. Barkbit is here all the way from Sweden, Hawaii, representing from Bike Me. Buck Owens, the great state of Iowa. I know where all these people are from. Christian Russell. He lives somewhere, and it's that weird location that's like Brittany, Cornwall, Devonshire, that area, that county in the British section of the Isles. Commander Root, Cobrian, Crazy IC, Ed Van Helen broadcasting live from the man cave, inverted broadcast through his eyes. Eeyore 4077 from Amigos Studios East. Electrical Longboard, of course, has joined us today. Figgy 78, Frodo and L from the Netherlands and Norway representing. Gary Heather, another great UK person. We got Jason Warnes from way up north in Canada. John Marshall from right here in Charleston, West by God. Jost 80 is with us. Mitsuyama, Mr. Cola, Neg Sol, Olav Hoop, Picard 2010, Finland, large and in charge, Real Reffy, rocking the guitar, Rob O'Hara from Oklahoma. We got Saddest Kitty, Rubber Slayer, the usual. Treyguard 82 now and again, V&K, Vigoro Pros, and Z9K9. Thank you guys so much. It makes the show so much more fun looking at the chat as we do it, knowing that there's people watching live.
Yeah, man. So, I'm glad before as usual, Boat, we almost left the show before I made important announcements that every time you go to the chat when I go announcements. Down. Just a week from today, Boat, the deal will go down maybe, depending on the internet. It
Something
may
they
go
get
down
down.
literally.
Yeah.
But 1 week from today, at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it will be the ARG Thanks for Giving Marathon. Oh, Thanks for Giving Marathon. What is that? Well, normally me and Brent and sometimes Bo, we get in here, we spin a bunch of
Well,
wheels.
you say normally. This has happened exactly one time.
That's
in the
right. Well, listen, normally that's what would happen right now. But due to wacky situation, this is going to be the all-remote special where Brent and me do this from our various homes. But we're going to play... 8 or 9 hours of games, and what we're going to do here, Boat, we've decided, and we're going to release a schedule this week, but we're actually going to put up some shows based on those lock pieces on the wheel, and Brent's got a schedule made up, which we'll announce the whole enchilada on our ARG Presents Sunday. But prepare yourself for some ZX Spectrum, some Atari, some Coco, and God knows what else. Plus us playing just a bunch of stuff. Should be a lot of fun, Boat. No, this is no fundraiser. Just 8 hours of just illing and chilling, having a good time. And we'd sure love it if you could hook up with us on Twitch, tune in, and have a good time with us. We had a good time last year. This should be a lot of fun
we are
too.
also going to be broadcasting an episode of Amigos at the very end.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to transition from, in fact, I'm pretty much 5 o'clock on the nose. The ARG Thanks for Giving Marathon will end, and then I will transition over for an extra hour of some Amigos, Everything Amiga podcast. What are we playing next week, by the way?
Next week, we are going to be playing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure.
Oh, man. That's going to be an intense one. I don't think I've ever played that one, Bode.
And this comes to us chosen by Amigos Game Selection Committee member Zorglove.
Oh, Zorglove, beautiful. And so we've got that going on. So that next Friday is going to be a huge day. Huge. You're going to be online the whole time. Then, Bode, on December 12th, the deal goes down. It will be International Computer Club.
Oh, yeah.
Two,
I
Bode.
can't wait. I'm so excited.
It will be a happening as various pundits and experts all convene on Zoom to get down and funky with some International Computer Club, which we will broadcast on Twitch for free. Everyone can attend, and we would love for you to show up and join us on Twitch for International Computer Club. The chat room will be hopping. If you are a member of the Discord community on the Amigos Retro Gaming community, that means anyone from Sprite Castle or Pixel Gaiden or ARG or the Amigos, anyone on our unified Discord is eligible to join us on Zoom and chat with us. And if you are not or aren't so inclined, you can just hop on Twitch and hop in the chat room. It should be a good time.
Now, are there any spots left for Discord members to actually present, or are all the slots full at this point?
If you get in tonight, as we record this live tonight or tomorrow, I think we can. If you want something, you can get in. I looked over the sheet, and believe it or not, we've got a pretty good docket. I think we got six or seven people that want to get in on it. Now, people have asked me, they've said, "Hey, Amigo Aaron, what are we gonna do in this thing?" Hey, listen, it's a crazy time, but you can do whatever you want, can't you, Bo?
Do whatever you want. I'm gonna be naked.
If you want to send in a video for us to enjoy, go ahead. If you want to be there live, like last time, Edvin gave us a live tour of his man cave, for example. If you want to give a talk or a demonstration live, you can. If you want to send in footage and talk over it, you can. Literally, there are no rules, pretty much. You do whatever you want. If it's classic computer or retro gaming related or console related, we're down. Anything goes. So we'll be more than happy to have you come around. It should be a lot of fun. That's December 8th, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Boat. And I think this will be a good time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Super excited. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of Amigos. As always, thank you so much for listening, especially if you're one of the people that stick it out all the way to the bitter end of the podcast. We appreciate you, and we will be back next week for ARG's Thanks for Giving Marathon. Don't forget, tune in extra early. Tune in 9 hours early for Amigos next week and enjoy 9 hours of gaming with the Brent and Amigo Aaron for the ARG Thanks for Giving Marathon. And then we will cap off the evening with a new episode of Amigos featuring Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure. We'll see you guys then. Until then, adios.